Alright guys, today I'm going to be showing you 5 useful tips inside of Adobe After Effects to make your life easier. Let's go check them out. Alright guys, so the first quick tip today is keyboard shortcuts that you will learn to love. Some of them at first can seem a little cumbersome, maybe a little awkward to use, but trust me, in the end, it saves a lot of time and they are great to use. Okay, so the first keyboard shortcut that I use all the time is just Command or Control N. It just creates a new composition. The next one is Command K or Control K, and this just brings up your composition settings. Again, it only saves a couple clicks, but it's a lot easier than going up here and trying to navigate to where the composition settings are. So the next one, I use this all the time when I'm doing any sort of design templates. Let's say, for example, I have this text right here. If you hit Command R, it brings up your guides, and you can set these guides wherever you want. And if you grab your text or any layer, it'll snap to the guides. So let's say you have a bunch of text and you need it all to line up on a certain axis. Well, these are perfect. The next one is Command apostrophe. So this just brings up the grid. The next one I use every single time I open up After Effects is the tilde key. If you take your mouse and hover over any of these windows and press the tilde key, it'll maximize the window that your mouse is over. So if you need to maximize your workspace here inside of After Effects, this is a great way of just focusing on your composition and not working with this small window right here or trying to deal with, dragging this out and trying to maximize the work area, and then you lose all this down here. Okay, another quick shortcut I always use is the pan behind tool. If you select your layer, you can see the anchor point right here, and if I were to rotate, it'll rotate around this anchor point. And if you actually want to change that, so you can change the type of rotation, you just click Y, and you can drag. If you hold Shift, you can drag it up in a straight line, and now you can rotate it from the center point. Another thing you can do with the pan behind tool is if you have an image and you have a mask on it and you want to move the image behind the mask, well, instead of just adjusting the mask or trying to come in here and shrink it to reframe the image, you can actually just select the image, press Y, and you can move the image behind the mask. Another one I use all the time is if I have a bunch of layers, I've created a nice little design template, I've got a cool logo, or I've got a bunch of effects, and I don't want 100 layers in this composition. I want to pre-comp everything. I just select the ones I want to, and Command-Shift-C or Alt-Shift-C, and it'll just pre-compose it real quick. Again, just saves you a couple clicks, so you don't have to go up here to composition or actually, see, there you go, layer, pre-compose. Sometimes I forget where these things are, so it's it's handy to have the keyboard shortcut memorized. Okay, the next one is saving a frame. So let's say this is a beautiful shot, I'm done, and I want to export just a still frame. Well, you can easily do that by Alt Windows key S or Command Option S on a Mac, and it'll instantly add that frame to the render queue, and then now you can change your settings and export it. Alright, so another combination of keyboard shortcuts I use all the time is if you hit Alt Windows key and Shift or Command Option and Shift and you press Y, it'll create a new null. With that same keyboard combination, if you press C, it'll create a new camera, and same keyboard combination, if you press L, it'll create a new light. And it might seem a little awkward to press those 3 keys at once or 4 keys, but once you create a new composition and you know immediately, okay, you need a null object, you need a camera, you need a light, well, within seconds, I already have my scene set up, and it saves me the time from having to go up here and do layer, new camera, you have to look for it, new camera, new light. It just saves a lot of time, and by using this keyboard shortcuts, you don't have this menu up here slowing you down. Alright, and another one I use all the time is Command or Control Y. It just creates a new solid. Again, just whatever can speed up the process of getting into the actual work. To me, that always helps out creatively. Okay, so the last 2 keyboard shortcuts are over here in the project panel. Let's say I want to create a bunch of folders. Instead of clicking this, typing in something, clicking another folder, typing in something, you can actually just hit Alt Windows key Shift and N or Command Option Shift N, and it just creates a bunch. You can just instantly, very quickly, just create as many folders as you want, and it just saves a lot of time. I use it every single time I'm setting up a new project. Again, to me, it's just better than going down here and clicking this little folder here. Okay, so the last one, let's say we have some footage. We've just imported a JPEG sequence or some red camera footage, and we need to right click, interpret the footage, and we need to change some of the settings. We need to change the frame rate, maybe make the footage raw, whatever. Well, instead of having to do that, right click, interpret footage main, we can actually just hit Alt and Windows key or Command and Option and G, and that instantly pulls up the interpret footage. I use it all the time. It's a pretty handy shortcut. Keyboard shortcuts are just one way to speed up the editing process inside of After Effects. If you're a shortcut guy like me, you'll find these pretty helpful. And if you're not, well, go Okay, moving on to the user interface of Adobe After Effects. After Effects already has a pretty sweet interface, but there are a couple things in the preferences that you can actually customize to make your experience even cooler. The first one I want to talk about is a custom project file. For example, if I create a new project by hitting Alt Windows key N or Command Option N, you can see this is my new project, and instantly it opens up all these folders here. These are folders that I constantly use: proxies, footage, my shot numbers, my Cinema 4D or Blender renders, and any 2D assets that I'll be using. And rather than having to create a new project and then coming in here, creating a bunch of folders and labeling it every single time, if there's a set amount of folders that you know you use, well, what you can do is open up After Effects, create the folders that you want, save that file somewhere on your desktop or on your hard drive, and then under the preferences, under new project, you just click this little checkbox, new project loads template, choose which template you want, hit OK, and now every single time you reopen After Effects or create a new project, you'll have your template ready to go. And honestly, I thought this was pretty cool. It was one of the cooler features that I found. Another thing that's pretty cool is under the preferences, if you go to labels, inside of After Effects, your pre-compositions, your compositions, your null objects, solids, adjustment layers, they're all linked to label colors down here. And you can actually change the color of those labels. For example, this was originally red. So any object that you see up here that's red, a solid and a null object and text, well, you can change that to blue. You'll see it automatically updates over here. And then let's just say we change this to a bright ocean blue here. Hit OK. So now when we create a solid, it usually would be a red layer. Hit OK. And look, we have a blue layer. And if you actually drag this out, you'll be able to see there's our label called blue. We'll create a new text. There we go, blue layer, and we'll create a new null object, and you can see they're all updated. And this is just pretty cool because if you wanted, I mean, you could completely change all of these colors. You could completely recolor code everything. You can even adjust the color palette depending on your project. If you have a certain project that you want a certain look, you could completely rearrange all the label colors. You could even go up here and just say you don't want your null objects to be that color anymore. You could switch it down here. It's just a pretty cool way of organizing, and I think it's something that sometimes gets a little overlooked, but it's pretty cool when you're trying to keep everything nice and organized inside of After Effects. All right, so last part over here in the preferences, if you go to import, usually by default, After Effects imports your JPEG sequences, PNG sequences, any sequences. It usually just imports at 30 frames per second by default. And usually when I'm rendering out of Cinema 4D or Blender, I'm rendering out at 24 frames. And rather than having to go over here, interpret the footage, and change the frame rate, you can just set it right here to 24. So now when I import, I just imported this EXR sequence. It comes in right at 24, and I don't have to interpret the footage. I don't have to change this. It's already set, and I can just start dragging that into a new composition. All right, so next quick tip is free plugins. There are 3 free plugins I want to talk about today. 2 from Video Copilot, and they are the Saber plugin, the FX Console, and Animation Composer. First one I want to talk about is FX Console. So FX Console basically gives you the freedom of, instead of coming over here to your effects and presets and clicking here and having to type something in, which, you know, when you're adding in a bunch of effects, definitely does get a little annoying. And instead of having to drag it over or double click on it, basically what FX Console does is you set a hotkey, and then you can just click whatever layer you want, click the hotkey, and then you can just start typing. You can hit enter. You can add several effects very quickly all at once without having to come over here and just type in 1,000 things. It's pretty cool. I use it all the time, and it's free, so, you know, why not? Okay, the next Video Copilot plugin that I think is a must is actually called Saber. Okay, so Saber is a free plugin, one that I use constantly. I actually just did a tutorial on lightsabers. I used Saber in that tutorial. You can also use it for hundreds of other things, energy cores. You can use it for magic or fantasy effects. You can even wrap it around text or 3D objects. It's pretty cool. You can create glowing neon letters within seconds. You just come over here to text layer, click on the glow, and there you go. Just turn down the intensity. Turn that off. And there you go. It's pretty cool. You can have a lot of fun with it. And there's a bunch of presets that you can even play with. So within seconds, you already have some pretty awesome effects. And finally, the last free plugin I want to talk about is the Animation Composer. Basically, just click on your layer. Let's say I click on my text. I come to Window, Animation Composer. And if you twirl down the effects presets and under text, you have all these presets that if you actually highlight, if you twirl this down, click this, it gives you a little preview right here of what it's going to do. So all you have to do is drag which preset you want, drag it in, and hit apply. We can exit that out. Maybe turn on some motion blur and check that out. Within just a couple clicks, we already have a pretty cool animation on our text. Something that would usually take minutes, which could eventually lead up to hours, now takes seconds. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. It doesn't just work for text, it also works for 2D layers as well. So let's say I have this logo and I want this to animate in. You just come over to Animation Composer and you can grab a 2D layer transformation. Let's see. Maybe I'll apply that one as the end, hit apply. And it also shows you the time frame of exactly where it's going to fade in, and check that out. Okay, quick tip number 4 is creating presets inside of After Effects. As you can see over here, so if you just twirl down the animation presets, under presets, I have this Creative Maniacs folder here, and I have this Creative Maniacs color correction. If I drag that on here, you can see it instantly brings in these 5 effects here that I've renamed to balance and correction. This just is something that I start with every time I want to color correct some footage. And I know every single time I go to color correct, I know I'm using a couple instances of curves. I know I'm probably going to add some contrast and maybe adjust the hue and saturation a little bit. So I created a preset for it. And to do that, it's very simple. Let's say you just come over here and create some levels. Okay, so let's say we've gone through, we created a film, and we love our color correction, or we love our compositing presets, and we don't want to have to come in here and copy and paste for 100 different layers or 100 different shots. Well, to save this preset, all you have to do is drag the effects that you want, select them, drag them over here, and just save them under your Applications and After Effects presets folder. Mine will be in Creative Maniacs. Just save it as whatever name you want. The preset will initialize, and we have our starting footage here. We'll come over to the presets, and here it is. Just drag that over, and all the work is done for you. All right, quick tip number 5 is render presets. Let's say this is all good to go, we're done, and we want to export it. Well, if we send it to the render queue, instead of always clicking here and adjusting our presets accordingly, I have some render presets set up for things that I know that I always render with, and let me just show you how to set those up. So file, export, add to render queue, click this make template button down here, click on edit. Let's see, I'm going to make it QuickTime. My post render action, I'm going to click import, and I'm going to change this to ProRes HQ, and I'm just going to turn off the audio, hit OK, and then I'm going to call this Maniac Render No Audio. And all you have to do is hit OK. And now you'll see this preset down here changes to Maniac Render No Audio. And so check this out. Let's say we go back to our comp, file, export, add to render queue. And here it is, Maniac Render No Audio. So the advantage of that is, let's say we have 50 different shots. We'll start with 20. Let's say we have 20 different shots. We've sent them all to the render queue, and we don't want to have to go in here and individually change each one. Obviously, that can get really annoying. So you just hit Command A or Control A, select them all, and we can make them all Maniac render no audio. And you can see how they all update. Choose where to save it and render. Alright guys, so there you have it. 5 useful tips inside of After Effects. I use them pretty much every single day. Don't forget to check us out next week for our next VFX tutorial breakdown. Peace.